The Cannabis Conversation. A European perspective on the emerging legal cannabis industry.
Welcome to the Cannabis Conversation with Anuj Desai, where we explore the new legal cannabis industry by speaking to the professionals that are helping to shape it. On today's show, we have Matt Clifton. Matt is CEO of Product Earth and a new venture called Milk and Amber. Matt, welcome. How you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Really good, man. Well, eternally whinging about this terrible weather, but yeah, hopefully by the time this goes out, we'll all be a bit cheerier.
Absolutely.
How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. I'm the same as you, to be honest. I'm a little bit fed up with seeing rain at late May, but I think summer's on its way. Can't be much longer, can it?
Yes. Positive thinking. I love that. Look, man, it's really good to have you on the show, and we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about. I mean, broadly going to be talking about marketing, but we'll talk about Product Earth, which is a really fun events business as well. So there's some great stuff to get into. The usual place to start, though, is a bit about yourself and your personal story. If you can just tell people about, what were you doing before, how and why you got into the cannabis industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess for the last 22 years, that is me getting old, isn't it? So 22 years, I've been doing various sales and marketing roles, working pretty much all different forms of media, even from in-flight to press and digital, working in companies like the Financial Times for about 5.5, 6 years. But most recently, I actually worked at Facebook. I was one of the first 6 employees outside of the US. And my final role, one of the wonderful things about working at somewhere like Facebook is that you can move around and find a niche that suits you and what your strengths are. They are very much a strength-based organization. And so I ended up heading up product marketing for Europe, Middle East and Africa for SMBs, which sounds very exciting. And really what it was all about.
Sorry, Matt, what's an SMB?
A small and medium-sized business. And so what my role was to help people understand how to use the platform in an optimal way at scale. I think we were looking after somewhere between 2 and 5 million advertisers at a peak. So yeah, trying to make solutions that people can easily understand is no mean feat. And I still think there's a long way to go, to be honest. Now I'm on the other side actually using these things for myself. It's like, wow, this is not as intuitive as I'd hoped.
Well, that's amazing. I've heard of Facebook. Yeah, how was it working for a humongous company like that?
It's everything you kind of expect it to be. I remember when I first arrived there and everyone has to wear their Facebook hoodies and things like that. And I arrived in this place called Palo Alto and I was like, what is this place? And then I'm seeing just people wearing Facebook jumpers, just like moseying around, but no real office space or anything like that. And we'd have like a weekly all hands, which would be in the local cinema, and Zuck's there, and you kind of have to stand in front of everybody and explain what it is that you've learned that week, which is, that's probably your first opportunity to really fail at Facebook. I think I managed to just scrape my way through, with some random comment about weather, I think it was, because it was a rainy day, and in San Francisco and California.
We love that chat.
Yeah, exactly. It's what we do. But it was a fascinating place to work. It's interesting when, you're working with someone like Sheryl Sandberg, for example, arguably one of the most successful businesswomen, or business people, I should say, in the world. The words that she says, people hang on to. There was one day where she actually kind of spoke about, we shouldn't be using PowerPoint slides so much. And that's fair enough. We shouldn't rely on PowerPoint slides, but it got misinterpreted. And so suddenly the entire company just stopped using PowerPoints instead of going out doing these elaborate presentations and trying to just fudge their way through it, which is quite funny. But there's also these kind of pearls of wisdom. And she spoke a lot about this kind of say-do gap. People say a lot of things and they do something else, and you want that gap to be as small as possible. And I honestly, I've hung my hat on that throughout Facebook. I think, if you're going to say you're going to do something, you need to be able to do it. You need to be reliable. And so it's one of the many wondrous things that Sheryl said that I've kind of taken on board. But just I mean, as a company, there's a lot of like-minded people, especially in the early days. People are taking a huge risk. I was left a job at the Financial Times to join a website where people threw sheep at each other. It's like, what is this all about? And obviously, over time, as a utility, the value started to really kind of show itself. And we were building amazing tools. Mistakes were made along the way. I think everybody knows those, but these things happen. Mark Zuckerberg actually is a genuinely good guy. He really is trying to make the world a better place. I know a lot of people say it, but he is genuinely doing it. Arguably, to some points there is some naivety there, which is how he kind of gets tripped up. But not everyone shares the same kind of moral compass, shall we say. But generally speaking, whenever you're in a Facebook meeting, internal or external, you can hear the passion coming from people, the fact that they really are genuinely trying to help people. They leave their egos at the door. It's a good community internally, and they build great communities externally. And that's actually one of the things that I found similarities between cannabis and tech or Facebook, which is the value of a community. I'm sure you've heard people talk about the cannabis community time and time again. It's the beating heart that is building this industry. But it's got it to where it is today. And I think you need to be engaging outside of the community to get that much further. But that's one of those moments where I realized that actually there are some similarities between the two. And this is clearly something that I gravitate towards. And now what I'm looking to do is take my expertise that I've built up over the last 2 decades and then apply that to this amazing emerging industry that is cannabis, hemp and CBD.
Yeah, and brilliant that someone with your kind of background from such a big and successful business can bring that to the industry. I mean, constantly talk about it evolving and professionalizing, and it's great to have talent like yourself coming in. So I think it's a great thing. How do you go from, a mega beast like Facebook to, very, very much the sort of startup world? How did you do that? And maybe also, how do you go from a very corporate environment to cannabis? It's quite different.
Totally. A string of questionable decisions. So it's probably not coming here. Well, actually, I mean, I've been a cannabis consumer as long as I can remember, which ironically isn't that long. But yeah, I like to invest in things as well. Obviously, Facebook has afforded me a number of different privileges, and I have looked to invest in different areas where I feel very passionate. I own the Lucky Pig cocktail bar in Fitzrovia, which is often featured on Made in Chelsea, which is just a den of debauchery and live music, to be honest, which is great. But what I realized, having been so passionate about cannabis for all these years and learning over time that this isn't a narcotic in the sense that you should be running for the hills. This is a drug that can help people. You can build things out of it. You can save the environment with hemp plastics. And there are just so many opportunities within that industry. And so I wanted to find an investment which would get me involved, shall we say, on the softer side of things, and then build from there. And I was helping out Clark French and the UPA at the time. One of the first questions you get is, "Oh, mate, can you unblock my page?" And that happens on a daily basis. It's like, okay, guys, let's stop doing this now. But it was great to help Clark, and it just made me realize that this is actually something I really want to do myself. And so Gavin Satyanathan, a name that is very well known in the cannabis industry, he went out hunting for an investment opportunity for me. I met him when I was working at Facebook about 10 years ago, and he's been working in the industry now for about 5 or 6 years. And it took him a couple of years, but when he came back, he's like, "Matt, I've got the thing for you." And it was Product Earth, the UK's largest hemp, CBD and cannabis expo. And so, I didn't really have to give it too much thought. It looked fantastic, exactly what I was after. Put my money in. We had to do a little bit more of an investment round. And then lo and behold, I've got a few of my friends involved. And then it seemed that rather than just being an investor, it might make sense for me to take the reins as the CEO and build in a bit more of an executive structure into the company. Simple things, running P&Ls, getting the budgeting right, all of these things that, a startup needs in order to get to the next level of growth. That is what I was brought in to do. And lo and behold, 2 months later, the pandemic struck. So that was a bumpy start to it all. But I have to say, there's been no looking back. It's great to work with such professional people. One of the best things is turning up to a meeting, being known as a cannabis company, and you can see they're like, "Is that them? Is that what a cannabis guy looks like?" And, we all turned up in suits and they're like, "Wow, you're just normal people." It's like, yeah, cannabis people are normal people. They cut through every single demographic. So we've had some really, really good conversations with law enforcement, with venue owners, and obviously all of the different brands we work with at the show. Is it a big change from Facebook being a big corporate beast? Facebook's not that corporate in the traditional sense. You know, you can wear whatever you want. The hours you work, you fit your life around Facebook and Facebook around your life. So I never had to worry about picking up my son from nursery on time or anything like that, because I can work from home whenever I want. I spent too much time on planes. That was certainly a painful moment where, you know, jumping on a plane every Monday and you're not seeing your son for 3 to 4 days of the week. That was brutal. But actually, as far as kind of a corporate environment, actually it was a lot of love in the room, I would say. And it's that kind of culture, that driven motivational culture where people collaborate. And that's something that I want to bring into this company now that we're building as well. Because that's the wonderful thing about cannabis. It doesn't have all these legacy issues that other industries have. You're able to build the industry that you want, that should have always been, with complete equality and equal opportunities and all of the rest of it. So, exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done on getting Gavin into a suit. He told me he would never do that.
The evolving hair of Gavin on his face as well. Sometimes it's his head, sometimes it's his beard. But yeah, every time we see him, he looks a bit different.
Fantastic. And look, I mean, you know, you've been open about your kind of relationship with cannabis as well, but did you encounter any stigma or any odd looks from family or friends or colleagues when you were making this move? You know, what is a fledgling industry and a poorly understood one at that?
Yeah, and it was funny because it varies from room to room, from country to country. Everyone gave me a slightly different bit of feedback. You know, in the US, suddenly people are messaging me going, hey, I invest in this. This is really good. Congratulations. If you need new pointers, let me help you out. When I announced that I was leaving in kind of a senior sales meeting, I think it was, everyone's kind of jaws just dropped to the floor. I mean, they knew I was slightly eccentric, so possibly not completely aghast by the fact that I was moving into the world of cannabis. But yeah, you could see, hey, you're at Facebook and you're going to leave and go and work in cannabis. Just that's really what's happening, is it? And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So I mean, it's one of those things, you know, even though now I'm over the age of 40, you want your parents to be proud of you, if you like. And my parents have been fairly clear on my consumption of various things throughout time. And so, you know, there's obviously that genuine concern about cannabis specifically, but actually opinions are changing. I sat down with my mum when she came around for dinner, and I've got a volcano. I treated myself to a volcano at the start of the pandemic. And, you know, I said, you know, this is how I medicate at the moment. And she was like, oh, can I try it? It's like, come on then, mum. And she was just like, well, this is absolutely wonderful. Really easy to control your dose. You know, the product is going to be really good. So she's kind of all for it now. And I think she's now more open speaking to her friends in the village. And she's also got friends over in Toronto as well, who are obviously far more forward thinking. And they're like, yeah, no, this is a big deal. Like, this is very, very par for the course these days. My dad's from a medical background. He was a general surgeon. And so I think he was aware of the claims of the benefits of cannabis, but is probably sat on the fence waiting for true medical evidence to reach his desk. I don't think he's out hunting for it, but I wouldn't say he's ashamed of me, but more kind of inquisitive as to how things are going. And he's got friends in South Africa. And so they're obviously like, yeah, this is a big deal out here too. And so I believe that's also helping him open up his mind. But there is a stigma. I'm lucky that I think people always thought I was a bit quirky anyway. And so this isn't a massive surprise. But there is a stigma. We are trying to break it down every single day. And I think that, you know, every single company and every person in the community has a role to play in doing that. There's been, you know, some people's efforts, shall we say, I think, fly in the face of all the good things that are out there and actually hold us back. So it's, sometimes the community, can be their own worst enemy.
Yeah, but generally positive, and I think your parents' attitude is quite a good reflection of that. I think as things are sort of moving and breaking down stigmas, etc., etc. So
absolutely,
that is good news. So let's talk about the two main commercial areas that you're focused in. Maybe we start with Product Earth, and then you can talk a bit about Milk and Amber, which is a new kid on the block. Yeah,
so Product Earth, it's been around since 2015. We've had kind of a couple of breaks in the flow, if you like. just finding a venue is not that easy to, that will suit what the show is all about. One of our big things is camping. That's what made us unique from the beginning. And so we wanted to make sure that there was space for people to be out in the countryside and camping. And on one of the years where we weren't able to do that, we did get a lot of complaints. It's not something that we want. We don't want complaints because again, we don't feel that's an accurate portrayal of what the cannabis consumer would be like were legislation to change. And so we're really proud that we've now found our home at the NAEC in Coventry, and this year it's the City of Culture as well, which is kind of cool. So Cannabis Culture meeting the City of Culture for 2021. It should be interesting. I'm going to see if there's anything we can be doing to kind of help that overall movement anyway. The show itself has been evolving, so it's getting bigger and bigger every single year. I think this year we'll probably have about 3,000 to 5,000 paying guests, which is good. Off the back of a pandemic, it does shake things up. The fact that we're still standing and fighting is a really, really good sign. And now what we want to do is make the overall experience more engaging. So one of the things that was happening last time rather than last year, I kind of forget 2020's even happened. Let's put that behind us. In 2019, there's some people they brought their skateboards along and they're just, pushing it around, doing ollies and kickflips and all of those wonderful things. So this year we will have a skate park. We want to give people engaging things to do. We're going to have morning canna yoga. So, wake up. What a lovely way to start the day. The show doesn't start till 11, so you don't have to rise from your tent too early. But for those that want to, let's say, party a little bit harder in the evening, once the show's all done, you're going to be able to go into the After Dark Village. We're very lucky that Mills Nutrients is actually the sponsor, and James loves music. So we even today, right now, my phone's going off as he's suggesting ideas for all these headline acts. So that is going to be something not to be missed for sure. And again, this is a bit of a change from what we did in 2019. In 2019, we had Mochiba, we had Kabaka Pyramid in the middle of the Grand Ring, but it is tiring going to a cannabis expo all day. And by the time you've actually been walking around for several hours, you kind of want to go and hang out with your mates, especially all the people, all the businesses there. There's a community that wants to speak to one another. And so the idea of going back to the campsite to then go back out to another field, it was just a bit too much. So now we've picked up the entertainment, we've dropped it in the campsite, and we've called it the After Dark Village. And that's going to have live music. We're going to have like a kind of a DJ collective. There'll be arcade games. A lot of gaming. Again, it's playing to the culture of what people actually want. There will be penny sweet shops, obviously. An important addition nonetheless. We're going to have some bars, chill out areas. There'll be a few nighttime stands there. It's basically what Product Earth is. It's the cheeky younger sister when the lights go down. That's the way we're kind of looking at it. We're having a lot of fun with that. So yeah, that's what Product Earth is going to be about. August 20th to the 22nd. So we're not on the bank holiday weekend this year, sorry. We did hear in the last time that it would be better to actually have it not on the bank holiday weekend. And we listened. We like to listen and then, give back to the community. That's one of the big ones. And then aside from that, it's not all fun and games. We also look to educate and inspire people. So we're working with Sam Cannon from Beyond Green, and we're also working with Science Fair, Shana there, to put on a level of conversation which hasn't been done to death already. It can be slightly controversial. We're hoping to ignite different conversations, either in the daytime seminars or in the fireside chats that we're going to have in After Dark. But we're really, really excited about that. Looking forward to having drug science there as well. It's actually a client of Milk and Amber that we've been working with, and tying that all together with the work that's going on some of these cannabis cards that you've probably heard a lot about, including MedCan ID. So looking forward to hearing that conversation and just seeing how it progresses, to be honest. It's going to be an exciting weekend for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Obviously was involved in the 2019 festival.
You were indeed.
Fantastic.
Too busy now.
Oh, well, it was such a great few days, and the weather was glorious as well. And we hung out with the guys from the Emerald Cup. Are those guys going to be back in town for this?
Hopefully.
Is it still a bit early to tell?
Do you know what? Travel restrictions from the US, it's still very, very uncertain about what's going to be possible and what's not. We do welcome a lot of people over from the US. Humboldt Seed Organization has always been a keen supporter of ours. But we just don't know. But we will be working with Tim and the team at the Emerald Cup to make sure that they know they are more than welcome to be with us. And we really hope they're going to be there because it's not quite the same without them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so tell us how this has got led on to Milk and Amber as well.
Yeah, well, it's no secret that the pandemic has prevented events from happening. And this was, it was bleak from the start, but by Christmas time, it was kind of like, I think this is it. I'm not sure if we're ever going to be able to put another show on, which it's not nice. It's not a nice feeling at all. You're feeling like you're letting people down, whether it's the businesses you're working with or the visitors that are going to be in attendance. You do have that feeling like you're letting people down. And so James Walton, who's the founder of Product Earth, he said, let's do something for the community. And it's like, okay, well, I'm up for it. What should we do? And he's like, a rolling competition. Because if there's cannabis consumers, they are an innovative bunch, they're a passionate bunch, and they are somewhat nostalgic. And the idea of like building contraptions, I remember doing that at school. And so it seemed like a really great idea. It's like, love it, James. How are we going to do this? It's like, I don't know that bit. I thought I'd just give you the idea and you could kind of run with it. So that's kind of what we did. We've actually just hired Passion Mustafa. You've probably seen it on my LinkedIn, but he's being our creative director. And so he and I explored different ways of running this competition. And ShortStack had this really kind of good integration where you can do votes on videos. We knew that doing videos would be a barrier to entry, but it was a bit of fun. I refer to this as the bumblebee. I do like this metaphor. I think it's now been scientifically proven, that this is rubbish. But the idea is that a bumblebee scientifically shouldn't be able to fly, yet it does. And this is what we were thinking about, a rolling competition on Facebook. It's hard enough to advertise CBD, let alone someone rolling a joint. And I had my doubts whether we could do it. So I made a video. I just rolled a joint and put it on Facebook. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. 2 days later, it had been seen 45,000 times. It's like, hang on a minute. We've got something here. We've got some great sponsors on board. And we kind of fleshed it all out over the next couple of months. And there was 2 components. There was a speed rolling competition and there was a style rolling competition. We managed to get like this kind of all-star lineup of judges, including people like Jared Mursky from the US, Shabba D for the old Junglist Massive, and many, many more, including Weavers, who arguably is one of the best joint rollers in the world. And then, so people would roll their best contraption, if you like. And there were some really, really interesting designs, including a Medusa and this pirate ship. It was very, very clever. And then the speed rolling as well, where you're just trying to roll a joint as quickly as you possibly can. A bit of fun. We got our sponsors on board, so we managed to make a bit of money. And then it was this kind of realization. It's like, oh, because we've got knowledge that other people don't, we can do things that other people can't. And this is actually a service that we should be giving to our customers. Let's create an agency. And this is something that James has actually been talking about for some time. But an agency can be any number of different things. And so we kind of honed it down over time to work out exactly what the service was that we should be offering. And so we've landed on that now. We're doing media planning and buying, which is kind of like the beating heart of everything we do. Content creation and creative, and then distribution, getting products on shelves. There's the sponsor that has just come on board for Product Earth, which unfortunately I'm under NDA and cannot talk about. They are a mainstream brand, which is now breaking into this world. And it's going to be great working with them, demonstrating how they can land this new product in an exciting and innovative way in the actual show itself. So yeah, that is how Milk and Amber was born. The reason why we call it Milk and Amber as well, I'm sure you wouldn't know about this because any kind of growing cannabis is illegal, but when someone is growing their cannabis crop, there is this personal choice that you make at harvest time as to what color the trichomes, so these kind of mushroom-like glands where the cannabinoids are produced, they change color. They go from clear to cloudy, which is when it's kind of ripe in THC, through to amber, where you get more things like CBN being produced. Now, everyone you ask will give you a slightly different answer as to when you should actually harvest. 80-20 is where I would say, but that's really what it's all about. It's a personal choice that the farmer makes, and that is what we as Milk and Amber offer, a personal approach to marketing. One of the most effective tools that we've got are our ears. We actually listen to what people want to achieve before just jamming things down their throats. And I think that's really, really important, especially in the world of cannabis and CBD, is to listen to what the companies are all about. Building brands has never been more important. And so understanding what makes them tick and what makes them different from everybody else is really important when it comes to actually doing a good job of growth marketing.
Fantastic. I mean, very exciting. And I usually ask a question around pivots, but it sounds like Milk and Amber was that pivot from, dealing with a very challenging set of circumstances in COVID and just us not being able to congregate. So you've beaten me to that.
I'm hoping we don't need to pivot anymore. I feel like we've done a lot of pivoting, but I now know we've landed on something that's great. You know, I've mentioned Jared's name already. So Jared Mirsky, he is the CEO and founder of Wick and Mortar, which is, I think it's the largest and arguably the most successful creative cannabis agency out there. We're in the process now, and I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning it, of actually putting together a strategic partnership. Obviously, he as a creative agency wants to offer more of a service to his clients, and us with our media planning and buying expertise, we can actually bring that together so we can offer clients on both sides of the pond, hopefully a world-class service.
Brilliant and much needed. So yeah, I think we're all looking forward to that. It segues nicely into our main topic as well, to talk about the marketing world when it comes to cannabis and CBD, and maybe take a slight step back. You know, how does marketing work generally for consumer products? And you know, we're going to predominantly talk about digital here, but if you can kind of tell everyone how it would normally work in a world that isn't laden with regulations and issues. Yeah. And then say how much of a challenge it is when it comes to cannabis and CBD. Well,
since things like Facebook emerged, people have been looking at a screen more than ever before. And, we're playing a zero-sum game, essentially, when you're trying to capture somebody's attention. They're flicking through their newsfeed, and you need to, for that moment, you need to be able to capture their attention and give them something that's relevant and interesting and inspiring, all of these wonderful things. That is not easy to do. I think the thing that everyone's doing at the moment is we're talking about video. We're going to move away from a world of text. The brain actually processes images and videos 60,000 times faster than any kind of text. And so this is why now creative is going to be so important. And that coupled with the kind of the iOS 14 update, which I can talk about as well. But one of the other issues that people find is that abandonment rate. In e-commerce, I believe it's now 80%. So if 10 people come onto your website, 8 of them are going to leave without doing anything. And that means you need to be able to capture their attention, but also their intention to buy those products. And this is no mean feat for a normal brand, if you like, a mainstream brand. But when you put that through the lens of cannabis and CBD, it becomes, orders of magnitude more difficult. That's for sure. So that's something that we are looking at, working with various brands right now on how we can overcome the barriers to entry. A lot of people want to talk about Facebook. The cannabis consumer is on Facebook. They are on Instagram, and Instagram and Facebook are constantly trying to find ways of stopping people talking about cannabis, and for good reason. I think once you're open to it and you've seen it happening, you can see that there is drug dealing going on Instagram. It's very, very easy to buy drugs from Instagram if that's what you wanted to do. And that is what they want to curtail. They're forward thinking as far as growing industries are concerned, but it's always going to be the user experience has to come first. And so if the environment becomes unsafe, that is bad news for Instagram and Facebook. And so that's my understanding of what they're trying to solve for.
And similar issues with Google, I assume, as well. They're not particularly friendly towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Google Ads is a nightmare to run. If you mention the word cannabis on any of these platforms, artificial intelligence is going to get you pulled down straight away. There is no doubt about that. There are ways around it, and you can talk about plant-based lifestyles. You can talk about a herbalist lifestyle. But if you mention the word cannabis, if you have any kind of depictions of the drug, if any way you evangelize for the consumption of cannabis, you're going to head nowhere. Where I guess with most mainstream brands, you're looking at this decline in brand advocacy, if you like. There is no brand loyalty this day and age. People that buy Nike now buy Adidas. You can have companies like Dollar Shave Club disrupting the entire ecosystem, and so that is where there's a big difference between cannabis brands. So when you're working with cannabis and thinking about marketing, you're turning on your brain from like 5-10 years ago, where building a brand is of the utmost importance. And that's because the prior lack of regulations meant that people are buying snake oil. It's very expensive CBD products. When you're probably spending £50 probably on a monthly basis if you're a regular user. And to get a product which isn't what it says on the tin, that's not good. It's not a good environment for anybody to be in. And so it's really important to build that brand, break down the barriers, show a high quality product and build trust with your community. And as I said, with kind of mainstream marketing, there are lots of ways of doing that just aren't accessible to the cannabis market. Lots of misunderstanding about what can and can't be done. A lot of people say you can't advertise CBD on Facebook. Yes, you can. There's lots of things that you can't do. You can't advertise anything that you could ingest, for example, but anything topical is absolutely fine. Building a brand is absolutely fine. You don't have to do paid media to be doing successful marketing on social. LinkedIn is a fascinating place to actually build a cannabis brand. Great for leads, great for everything. And so I think people are starting to look a little bit further afield. But at the same time, everything is constantly changing. YouTube, so when the legislation status changed in New York, YouTube suddenly changed their positioning and saying that you could monetize cannabis content. Again, you can't make wild claims and you can't evangelize for consuming cannabis, but providing you are being objective in the way that you're communicating, it's absolutely fine. And I think that's the sign of things to come. Once people have worked out how you can remain safe, then they'll be looking at opportunities to expand this conversation further.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point to make, because it is, nothing in this world is static, particularly in the cannabis industry. And, we are under a kind of strict set of circumstances at the moment, but it feels those are gradually kind of liberalizing, let's say. So you have to have one eye on the future, I guess.
You do. But then again, there's always things around the corner to trip you up. This iOS 14 update has been disruptive, to say the least. What it is, I don't know if you've kind of seen it. I talk to people until they glaze over, and it's just like, this is really interesting to me. But I don't think it's as interesting to everybody. But essentially, using people's data in a responsible manner to build out audiences, to optimize towards people that are likely to take an action, and to report on those things. That all used to be very, very possible on Facebook, for example. But the iOS 14 update essentially meant that people could opt in, or would have to opt in to have their data shared in that way. And that means that advertisers now, because realistically, are you going to say yes, please? Because it sounds horrific when you're talking about how the data is being used. I mean, actually, it's all hashed and you're very secure, but it sounds bad. And I can imagine most people will be like, no, I'm just going to turn that off. The good news is that actually, iOS, I think it's something like 80% of people on Facebook are actually using Android. And also the uptake of the iOS 14 has been slower than expected. So it's not created quite the ripple effect that you'd expect, but it's coming, and it's something that we all need to be aware of. And so now, something we talk about at Milk and Amber is how we leverage first and second party data in the most effective way. And this is actually something we've did with Drug Science, one of our first clients. They've got a really, really great audience that they speak to on a regular basis, a very loyal audience. But they struggle to reach beyond that because you can't mention the C word. It's very difficult to actually talk about all the wonderful things they're doing as a registry, building up, a hoard of data to improve the access to and efficacy of medical cannabis. So what we were able to do is leverage custom audiences in a way where we could find these people that Drug Science speak to, and we kind of can find them on Facebook, and then find similar types of people that react and interact with content in similar ways to that source audience. And we can do nesting strategies and all of these wonderful things where you apply different values to different people based on how close they are to that source audience. So that's why now emails are going to be really important, not just for email marketing either, which is a proven way of building a cannabis brand, nice and trackable and all the rest of it. But there is more than you can do. You can do more than just send an email with an email address. So that's certainly something that I think we have been capitalizing on, and we're helping people understand, because if done in a responsible way, I think it's a very effective means of marketing. So yeah, that's kind of like the first party data. And then second party stuff, or influencers. I think this is the future. There's good influencers and there's bad influencers. And I think the most important part is influence. If these people can't actually change people's minds to buy a product or sample something, then they don't really hold any value. And I think as an influencer, as you grow your audience, it's tempting to take the easy money and say, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll talk about your product. But it's kind of, I was thinking about it this morning. It would be like me talking about a pair of football boots. I don't even own a pair of football boots. I don't think I would have any need for a pair of football boots for the rest of my life. So if I suddenly start talking about a pair of football boots, firstly, it's going to be hard to get excited about. And secondly, no one's going to believe me. So I think how you categorize your audience, how you understand their passions and how they resonate with your brand is really, really important. And again, this is something that we're looking to do, because finding the cannabis consumer, even though they're probably sat next to you on the bus, in terms of media and marketing, is actually quite complicated. And so something we actually leveraged for the High Roller World Cup, the rolling competition, was our ambassador program. We had 90 different ambassadors with a reach of 1.3 million. So that was a handy way to extend out to like-minded people that we knew would be interested in what we have to offer. And that's now something we're going to be looking to do at Milk and Amber, is actually building out our own influencer network. Because again, it's something that inspired me from Facebook is it created jobs. Hundreds of thousands of jobs around the world were created because of Facebook and everything that they did. And I think, in the world of cannabis, a lot of people can be influencers. You look at someone like Koala Puffs, she's done really well over on the US side of things. But we've also got people in the UK that are good influencers in their own right. What I would love to do is to take people which have a small following, teach them and work with them on how to become the best influencer that they can be. And as their following builds, start to engage them with different brands. And it might start with, you get a few free products here and there, and then you'll start to actually get compensated. Then lastly, when you are this true influencer, you can make a genuine, decent salary from being an influencer in the cannabis world. But it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes professionalism. But it can be done. And that's something we're really looking forward to doing for Milk and Amber. So whenever our clients come to us, we have a pre-packaged audience, all categorized with their various interests to help engage people with certain brands.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about influencers. And so, I would imagine it's particularly at the more kind of consumer end, a very key part of what you're doing. And just conscious of time as we sort of get towards the end, something that's obviously quite passionate area for me is content. So how important is content in what you're doing?
Well, do you know what? It comes under the three things that I talk to CBD brands, cannabis brands, whatever they be, whether it be medical, whether it be lifestyle, whether it be CBD. There's three things that I believe you need to get your head around in order to be successful. The first one's data. You need to be able to understand data and leverage data. And we've kind of spoken a little bit about that with kind of custom audiences and what you can do there. The next one is funnels. Whether it be the marketing funnel, where you need to be operating both at a high end, bringing people in, talking about awareness, and then slowly over time pushing them through the funnel. That needs to be done. I mean, the user journey on most products now has become so much more long-winded and disparate, and they're on laptops, and then they're on mobile phones, and then they're on their iPads. Trying to build your funnel around each of those things is really, really important. And then, like you said, the content funnel is also important. You need to have meaningful content that is rich, that people want to read and engage with, that is unique, original. And then that needs to go all the way through to those lightweight touch points where you're just talking about little statistics just to kind of keep people engaged and involved in your story. So funnels, again, really, really important. And then last but not least is creative. It's all very well being able to find the audience, but if the message you're telling them isn't clear, then you won't be successful. And when you get all of these three things working together, that is how you can effectively build a brand and sell products. And that is what Milk and Amber is here to do.
Fantastic. What a beautiful way to end the show. Thank you, Matt. And look, really, really useful service you're providing. And it's because it's quite hard to navigate. And, I myself get people coming and saying like everything doesn't work and I've stopped from doing this. Can you help me? So at least I know who to point them to now. So that's good.
Too right. Yes, we are open for business.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Matt, for joining me. Always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Likewise.
And we'd love to have you on in the future.
A quick plug, if okay.
Please do. Please do.
So Product Earth is on the 20th to the 22nd of August. All the tickets are available on Eventbrite, but you'll obviously be able to find us on Instagram and Facebook. And like I said, Milk and Amber is open for business. Whether you want to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds or just have a nice coffee and a conversation about what you're trying to do in the field, we would love to speak to you.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, I'll be providing links and stuff when we push the show out. So cheers, Matt. Thank you. And we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, buddy.
Cheers.